Hi, everyone. Hi, Wendy Gomez.
I couldn't get off mute fast enough. Hi, Linda. Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I've got a son that's a Steelers fan, so I may stay on mute more than normal because might hear him scream.
Oh, good.
Not a usual problem Wednesday at 4, but
Yeah.
Oh, so that game's on, isn't it?
it is.
We just lost Greg. He's gonna go watch it.
Looks like do we have everybody?
Yes, I think we do.
All right, good. Well, welcome everybody. As we'll just get started, get right into it. Are we waiting for Nan? Is Nan here?
Say her name and she appears.
Good. Okay, so this is the meeting of the subcommittee, facilities subcommittee of the Community Center Feasibility Task Force. So call the meeting to order. First thing we need to do is approve the minutes from 11/9. Those were distributed to everybody. Any comments?
Move to accept.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, good. So we want to do a couple things today. We want to look again at some the site and the building plan keeps being revised a little bit, and so we want to take a look at that. And I think Nan will lead us through that. Plus, we've had a lot more effort put into the estimate, another iteration of that. I want to talk about that. And then lastly, we're going to get into discussing recommendations that we need to make back to the task force from our committee. So why don't we start with Nan, and you can take us through what you have, and anybody feel free to ask any questions as we go through it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the plans have changed since the last facilities subcommittee meeting, but I can just give an overview of those again if you want, or we can go straight to the interior views. Would everybody like to see the floor plans again? I can just run through those real quick.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, I need to share my screen. I'm looking at it. That doesn't help you guys. Can you see the screen yet?
Can.
Good. So this is the ground floor level that we've been working with, pretty much with the pool and the party room, the 60 parking stalls, and the really the control desk. And then the office lobby and an interior connector between the two so that people using the office facilities can come down the elevator and come over and enter the community center without having to go outside. And so there's an entrance from the street side and also from the parking garage side. The second level has, the pool space is a 2-story facility. So you have a half a floor of the pool, and then you have the aquatics or the group fitness and exercise spaces, and some staff administrative space. And you have a nice sort of overview of the lobby. On the third level, you have the gyms, the 2 traditional gyms and the MAC gym. And I believe that we had talked about making this space a child watch space at one of our previous meetings, and I think you all have seen that. And then this adventure play and game room at this west end of this floor. And then on this 4th level, the track and stretching areas. fifth floor, we're showing the senior lounge, billiards, some classroom spaces that would be like the arts and crafts space as well as multi-use spaces. We did add this furniture to just give a scale to this room, and you'll get a better sense of that when you see the interior views as well. A large outdoor patio that can be used for pre or post event functions in the multi-use room or for group exercise outside. And then a significant portion of this floor is designated as office space, which could potentially be a partner space, depending on what happens with that over these next few months. Oops. Level 6 and level 7 are similar in that they both show office space with a large mechanical, what we're calling a penthouse space as well. So that's the floor plan for level 6 and level 7. And then this building massing and stacking diagram, I guess, was not really in there. So I think you all are familiar with that, but I realize I didn't get put into the slideshow. So are there any questions or comments about the plans, or do you want to look at any of those? Okay. And I'm just going to scroll back up to the top to look at the interior views. So we tried to just graphically represent some of the amenities. And so this is the view really from the reception desk of the lobby. And you can see the stairs that go up to the second level. This would face the driveway that comes out here. So across in this green space is the assisted living space. You can see in this lobby that it's showing a kiosk, and we're showing a climbing wall at the end. So Tremont is out at this end in this view. So it just gives you a sense of the openness and really how this can be a great community gathering space, I think, at this ground floor level. And then this is a view looking at the combination pool. So you see like a 0 grade entry here, a significant place structure. You see lap lanes in the distance, you see a slide, and then some open water, just to show the multiple amenities of that pool. This is actually from the track level. So you're looking down into the gym, the gyms, and you see beyond it the adventure play area, and you see the track, and then the connector, the open, really monumental stair connecting the multiple levels of the facility. And you see the elevator there. This is a senior lounge and program area on the 5th floor. So we have here, a lounge space. This is a service window for the kitchen that serves the multi-purpose room. So there'd be coffee service probably here, and that would be determined as this continues to be developed. And then you can see like a service desk in the area that's really more of the resource center for seniors, and beyond that, a billiards room. And again, you see the elevator and the stairs connecting it to the other levels. This is the multi-function room. So again, you get a sense of the scale, and you'll see that there will be really great views from this level in both directions. This is looking towards the patio. So this is the glass wall that opens that would allow, great openness between the patio and the multi-function room. And you see the fireplace in the background. So this is set up for 250 people, and a stage would be behind us here, which is a portable, just platform type stage.
Looks like your two people have, go back one. Your two people have an issue there. They need to.
They do.
Yeah.
I could fix that. That's really, I wonder what happened there. We'll be sure that gets fixed for the community meeting. That's very strange. Yeah. Good eye.
What I like about that, what's really pretty cool about that, number one, is the view out straight ahead toward Tremont into the terrace. I mean, that's nice with that stone fireplace in the corner. I think that adds a lot of feel to it, but especially as you're looking to the south, which is to the left, you're kind of looking out over the whole community of Upper Arlington. You're going to have a pretty good view looking down that way. So I think this will be a pretty awesome space.
I think it will be, it'll be great event space. And it also, remember, the room subdivides. So, you know, you can have smaller meetings here as well, which I think will just be really great meeting space and flexibility.
And I don't know, Steve, question for you. I assume, I don't know what the rules are as far as having an alcohol permit or something like that if you're having a wedding. How does all that work?
My anticipation is that we will have arrangements so that if there's a private catered event, that they can have alcoholic beverages there. I think that's got to be part of, if we're going to leverage this fully for kind of revenue production, yeah, we're going to have that.
And I don't know how easy or hard that is to get that done, but I have no idea.
Yeah. It's taking everything in my power to make some kind of a joke about that, but I'll just keep the straightforward standard answer that yes, we think that's necessary for revenue generation. And it will, you know, in all seriousness, if you look at this being a place where, you know, families could come and have a wedding or a retirement party or something like that. I think it's fantastic space, and that's how we want to use it. And for folks to be able to bring in alcoholic beverages appropriately managed, I think is going to be important.
Okay.
And then this is a view of from the patio looking back towards the multifunction room. And this, you know, we're still working on what this might really look like. We've talked about a lot of different functions here, so it'll be important that it be flexible in terms of allowing both space for fitness programs and outdoor seating. So I think this will be just a great gathering space when the weather is nice. So this will, you know, all of these will probably continue to evolve a little bit over the next couple weeks, but we wanted to share these initial views with you all, and just wondering if you have any comments or feedback on these views.
Comments from anybody? I mean, I think this will really help people to kind of visualize. A lot of people really struggle when they look at plans to try to kind of get a feel for what they're looking at. I think these kind of views help a lot. And if I understand right, there is the possibility moving forward, not in the near term, but maybe in the next month or so, you can do some sort of a quote unquote walkthrough, kind of a visual walkthrough of this thing.
Yeah, so we've talked about creating what we're calling an animation that takes these views and then makes a little video. So like you're walking through the building. And we're thinking that would be something we could do for the ballot initiative, you know, after the council presentation.
Right.
So that
I
people can get a sense of that, it'd be on the website probably.
Yeah, I think that kind of tool or presentation, whatever you want to call it, just helps people to kind of see it and understand it a whole lot better. You know, a lot of, you know, kind of relate to what they're looking at versus just plan views. So, I mean, these renderings are really helpful. So,
Great.
any comments, any suggestions? Probably on the patio, you probably want to do a rendering that shows a combination of maybe some outdoor seating like this and some fitness or something like that, so people can kind of understand both. Maybe it's two separate renderings, I don't know, but
Okay.
it's something to think about.
the most important thing I took from these renderings is it does, I think, help people get a sense of scale. And in terms of, it's when you look at the plans, some of those rooms look a little small, and then you see how it's going to arrange with, the fact that you can stick this many tables out on the patio. Well, no matter how the patio is used, I think the most important thing is to think of these as a frame of reference in terms of size and scale.
And
Yeah,
so
really.
just look back through these.
I mean, that's a great rendering there.
Yeah, really.
I have a quick question, Nan.
Yeah.
Will you be able to separate the use of the patio from the room? In other words, there would be access to it independently of activity?
Yeah, let me flip back down to the floor plan. The corridor goes out there. So there's a corridor here and there's a door at the end of the corridor.
Oh, okay,
There's
great.
glass wall can be closed and the corridor can be there, and yeah, so there's access that way.
For purposes of activity that might generate revenue, separating those things might be a good thing. Possibly you could use them contemporaneously with each other.
Yeah.
So Nan, I didn't catch this, but now that you said it, you think we would put some sort of glass wall that's openable down there?
That was a request that we had in one of our facilities subcommittee meetings, to just be able to open that. And yeah, so we're showing that as a possibility.
Yeah, it's there's like a Nana wall product, Greg. It's kind of a little pricey, but it's really nice in terms of really opening that flexibility, especially on a nice spring day. You can open that up and shut off your air conditioning and have it like an indoor-outdoor space.
And it could
Yeah.
be nice for wedding reception or something to have some of that indoor-outdoor transparency. So
Just need to have somebody around knows how to shut it quick if it starts raining or something.
true. So, and as this would go into a design phase, a lot of these details can be worked out then, as far as what does that really look like and how does it really function. And
Right.
But it gives that suggestion that that's possible. And you see that in a variety of places around town. So I think it's nice to have that as an option or an amenity. I think we're going to continue to work on this rendering a little bit.
One other, this is totally random and not important, but just something to think about, and it's probably more furnishing, but out on that deck, it might be nice to have a couple, fire tables, not, that are gas kind of things, just gathering places that are outside. I don't know if you want to show something like that. I don't know if that presents code issues or not, but anyway.
Okay.
Those are not easily movable generally, so.
Yeah, if they're hooked up to a gas line.
Yeah.
But they could be strategically located, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the budget up here. This is a new summary that basically added escalation to the numbers that you saw at the last meeting. We had it just as a footnote that suggested 3% escalation per year. And so I want to just review that Williams had developed some preliminary numbers in two different ways. Initially, just as kind of square foot costs based on our database of actually constructed facilities. And then at the next iteration, we did the same thing based on our database, but based on the typical components. So based on the substructure and the superstructure and the HVAC and the envelope, and put those numbers together. And then we had that vetted by 2 local contractors to just be sure that if we needed to adjust that database for this market, and at that higher altitude, they both came up with kind of a similar bottom line number, which is this project budget number. And then we worked with one of those contractors to vet this a little further, where they actually did a more detailed estimate. So these numbers have really held up well. And then just for transparency purposes, and so that the city really and the citizens really understand the costs, went ahead to show this escalation factor. And so one of the things I want to, so this does increase the numbers, and this is, you'll see in the footnotes that we think these are fairly conservative numbers. We have a lot of contingency built into them. We have in this project budget number, we have 10% design contingency, a 3% construction contingency, and a 3% owner's contingency, and then 7.5% escalation. So total, that's, you know, like 23% in contingencies and escalation on these numbers. We think that's where you ought to be budgeted right now, because some of this is unpredictable in terms of escalation, but I think these are some good, safe assumptions, and these contingencies were vetted by the contractor as far as what they're seeing locally. And we think this is really where you need to be as you do your planning. And of course, this can, again, be adjusted as the process unfolds, and this would move into a design phase at you know, following the ballot initiative.
Can you expand on how you see design contingency?
So what we typically do is carry a 10%. So this building hasn't been designed, right? I mean, we have a concept, but it hasn't actually been designed. So typically, we would carry a 10% design contingency probably through the design development phase, which is, so in the schematic design phase, you would actually put actual dimensions and rooms and walls and doors on the plan, and then really outlining the kind of the character and size of the building, and continue to develop that in the design development phase. And until this is actually designed, we suggest carrying that contingency, because there are a lot of things that we just don't know about yet. And so that is fairly typical throughout the industry, to carry that kind of design contingency. The difference between that and the construction contingency, this is set up for a CM at risk. And so typically they build into their, if it's a guaranteed maximum price, they would build construction contingency for their unknowns into their construction cost. So really the design contingency and the construction contingency are both built into the construction cost. So within this number is where those contingencies appear. And then the owner contingency, this is on top of the construction cost. So this is a contingency that could apply for some of the soft costs, or could be available if needed for the construction cost. But it's just a number that then, you know, just continues to cover unforeseen things or unexpected costs or things we didn't think about. And at this stage in a project, you need to be fairly conservative with that, because there's so many unknowns. So that's kind of why we carry those contingencies. And I think those are pretty typical for this point in the project. You know, escalation, you can make different assumptions. My understanding is the escalation has been running between 2 and 3%. And I think it's been creeping up a little bit, but we felt like the 3% was a pretty safe number, and not too conservative, but conservative enough. Of course, nobody has any way of predicting what costs are going to be like, you know, when a year from now or 2 years from now. But this is a good guesstimate of that to build in some protection. And what the contractor said about that was really, they're seeing labor costs go up, and, you know, right now it's kind of a buyer's market for an owner, you know, to be building a project like this. But, you know, this is probably at least a year and a half to being ready to go out to bid. So we don't know what the climate will be like then.
Nan, do you think it has value to say what the difference is in cost between the total construction cost and the project budget. I mean, I know what it is. It's the design fees, and it's the facility. I mean, the furniture, equipment, et cetera. But that's a big number not to have some kind of an explanation about it.
Yeah, and we do have, some detailed budgets that back this stuff up. But so it is professional fees. So it's architects and engineers and attorneys and, the geotechnical folks and some inspections and maybe an owner's rep, we're just trying to budget for what might be anticipated in the professional fees category. And then there are some, like you said, some other soft costs like furniture, fixtures and equipment. Some of the like basketball standards and things like that are built into the construction costs, but some of the most of the loose furnishings are not. And so that's a soft cost. Just a variety of things that permits and some of the things that the owner typically pays for, surveying.
Nan, what I was thinking, it might, particularly for tonight, I don't know if you can fix it, but it seems like to me, for the person that's not actually involved in the process as we are, to have maybe that information in that chart. It seems to me that would be helpful for, one of our residents that says, oh, wow, where'd that other $7 million come from? Go to, yeah. Just an idea.
Well, and that's really this group's call as far as, I guess the thinking was to try to keep it high altitude for this meeting, and we may be sharing more detail at future meetings or in some of the other materials that are put out about the project, but just trying to keep this comparison fairly simple for tonight. And where this really falls in the presentation for this evening is, as we're showing kind of the differentiators between the two sites, we're showing that cost was really a difference in considering the development costs for the two sites. But that's really your call as a committee.
Hey, Nan, I thought what you're calling total hard construction costs, I recall you had soft costs in that, right? That's not just hard, but you had soft costs built into that number.
No, it's not. The difference between the project budget. So the hard.
Oh, I see it now. Okay.
Is
so
the construction cost.
Okay,
So
got
the
it.
soft costs are really the gap between the construction cost and the project budget.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Contingency, the owner's contingency, FF&E fees, all of that's part of the soft costs that make up the gap between these two.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think what Bill's saying is I don't know if we can do it for tonight or not, but maybe as we move forward, if you added one line item, you start out area square foot, then you give total hard construction costs with footnote 1, which basically says you're including the contingencies there.
Yeah.
And you would add a line item that says furnishings and soft costs and owner contingency, $7 million. I'm on Kingsdale now, $7 million. Total project budget, what you got, escalation, what you got, total project budget with escalation. It's basically defining what what that $7 million is, or that 9 million or whatever it is for the MSC site. It's just so people can understand it a little better, that's all.
Yeah, we could add a footnote to that and show it, like I did put the escalation number in here as a line item. So we just weren't going from here to here.
Right.
To sort of follow that. I could do the same thing with the soft costs here in another footnote.
Yep. I mean, that adds one line. So I don't know if I wouldn't want to add any more than that, but if it's just furniture, I wouldn't say FF&E because nobody knows what that is. I would say like, explain it, furniture, architect.
Yeah, I think we're carrying something.
Attorneys, whatever, however you want to touch that. But really, if you think about this overall estimate, to your point, Nan, you've got 24%, don't want to say contingency, but 24%, including contingency and escalation total, over and above what our estimate is saying it's going to be at this point in time. So I think from a budgeting standpoint, we're being more than responsible. I think we're being very cautious and covering ourselves. There should be no way we'd ever go above this number, and likely we, should be able to come in under the number. So, I think we're just covering ourselves well. So, because if you're looking at it, Nan, just so I understand, I mean, we're adding a 10% design contingency for things we don't know, but we did go in and do an estimate based on historical square footage costs for this kind of a building that would cover all the things that we are going to be doing. And so it's unlikely that you're going to have 10% of something added on, but you don't know, so you got to cover yourself.
Well, I think typically you end up spending that 10%. You don't normally save that. It's just that.
Do you do it because it's there, or do you do it because you usually do?
Well, I think historically at this point in the project, you just don't know everything. And so that's a factor. Now, if you want to target a different budget, then you can make that a different number.
Yeah.
But historically, that's been a pretty safe estimate of the unknowns at this point in the process.
Okay.
And usually everybody wants a lot more than they can afford. And so, and even though we have a defined scope, oh, well, could we do this? We didn't think about that before. And, so there is a whole process of designing and managing to the budget. And really, we want to hold everybody accountable to that. The owner, the architect, the engineers, we want everybody to buy into the numbers and work towards really designing to that and committing to that number. And
So what you're saying is, when somebody proposes that we have outdoor heated tables out there, this is the that's where those interesting ideas like outdoor heated tables on our patio go. That's what you're saying.
So you throw them in, and then you
because
take
it's not really, just like the owner's contingency isn't really designed to cover things like that either. Well, what if we put a hot tub out there on that deck, or I don't know what it is, but it's not really designed to cover those extra things. If you have some of that contingency money at the end of the project, or at a point where you're enclosed and you have a pretty good sense of how things are going, you might accept an alternate, which would be something that we've designed that isn't in the budget, that maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, or maybe you have some alternates on furniture, so you upgrade the furniture when you see where the costs are.
We put a second slide in the pool. We do those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is, when we start into the design process, you're going to do a schematic design. Team members, or the construction manager, whoever it is, they're going to estimate it. Then you're going to go to design development. You're going to do that, and then you're going to estimate it, and you're going to adjust it. And then you're going to go to 90%. They're going to estimate it and adjust it. And they go to final. They're going to estimate it, then you adjust it. So I think with that kind of disciplined process, I think you can manage to the number.
Right.
At the end of the day, you can always bid some alternates that you either add in or you take out, to kind of meet the number. And I mean, that's how I see the process going forward as far as designing to the number.
Right. And I was just going to say that, Greg, there will be a list. We've had those when we did our $10 million renovation of add alternatives. So you've got a list of those elements of the project that if we are cost effective and we're able to have some additional dollars, we can go to that list of add alternatives, like you say.
And the bidding climate will have a lot to do with that too. So, it just depends on, if we can, it's just part of the process now that you really do that check-in at each part, and you manage the design and try to just be sure you're in alignment at each step along the way. And, there'll be a lot of decisions and choices to make in order to allow that to continue to happen. And some of those things you'll want to spend some money on, and some of those things you might want to take out of it to just, you know, be able to manage to your budget and to your program. So, you know, it's a process that, like I said, requires everybody to be diligent and good communication and good decision-making.
Well, I think what's reassuring is the fact that you all approached it with the way you estimate, came up with a number, then Gilbane did it a different way, and they came up with a number, and they were virtually almost identical. So,
Yeah, so I think that's just affirming, and yeah, I was sort of surprised we were like $14,000 apart on 50 million or something, which
kind of like the election. Some of the states. Yeah. So,
and you know, at this point, everyone's estimating conservatively, which we need to be doing. So.
okay. Any other questions on the estimate? Any other suggestions, comments? Well, if you can make that one change, it doesn't necessarily have to get done by tonight. If you can, that's great. But I think
Yeah, I'll
for
see.
what we present
Get that done.
moving forward, I think that would be good.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, OHM's doing the presentation, so it's not just me. So I have to see if Rick's eating dinner or something. But you know, I could probably do that while you move on to the recommendations portion.
Yeah.
At least shoot him an email.
Okay. Well, let's move on to item 4, discussion of recommendations. I had put together a draft summary of kind of the efforts of the committee over the last however many months it's been, 6 months, 9 months, of the subcommittee. And I know, sorry for the late arrival of that. I don't know if all of you had a chance really to look at that. If not, that's fine. But what I wanted to put out there was basically the summary of what we had gone through in phase 1 and then phase 2 in terms of the conclusion, kind of the number 1, the process, and then number 2, what came out of the process and the conclusions that we have, and then ultimately a recommendation that we as a subcommittee will need to make to the overall task force. And then the task force obviously is going to make a recommendation on the 16th to City Council. So has everybody had a chance to look at that? If not, I can summarize it. I don't want to read the whole thing, but I can summarize it, kind of what I put in there, or not, or we can just have discussion on what I sent out. So I did saw Bill had some comments. I don't know if anybody else had anything. Do you want me to kind of give an overview? Would that be good? What's everybody's thought? I see Margie nodding. All right.
That'd be great if you could. Did you say you sent it out, Greg?
Well, I sent it to the subcommittee.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. And we can, I think, with Jeff on there, we can put it up on the screen for Margie to see, and anybody else who did not get that sent to. So let me I'll just do a quick overview. Basically, we did a summary of what we did and kind of the conclusions we came to in phase 1. And phase 1 was primarily coming up with programming, which was square footage allocations for the community center. And this programming came out of feedback through the community input process, whether through the survey or the informal meetings that were had, et cetera. And so OHM and Williams, excuse me, kind of put together a square footage allocation based on the priorities that were set as far as as part of that public input. And so that's, you can see that, and this is Bill's version here. He has a few editorial comments, so that's good. And I think as a committee, as a task force, everybody's kind of agreed that these are the things that need to be in the community center. So that was the primary thing that we came up with in phase one. There was a few other criteria that I noted down here that number one, the senior center will be replaced by this building. So we need to have senior space, senior designated space in this building. And the existing senior center would be demolished on Ridgeview. So that was something that came out of phase one. Number two, an important item is that the facility is not just a recreation facility, but serve as a central gathering place for the whole community. So it's not just fitness. There's other things that we want to hit here, you know, with the meeting rooms, seniors, you know, et cetera, that we've been talking about. It was pretty clear. Residents wanted a community center that's central. So that became a criteria for site selection and multiple means of access, like how easy is it to get there by pedestrian, bikes, mass transit, et cetera. A big one and a strong thought that came from our public input is people did not want to see green space get used for a community center. And then and that was a big part of the criteria that we used to evaluate that. So if we go to phase two, basically the first part of the phase two was really trying to nail down a couple sites. We started with 14 sites, quickly winnowed that down to 8. And those 8 sites were sites that either the city owned or had some cooperation with the private property owner. And we went through that whole process of a weighted criteria to kind of decide which were the best sites. And out of that came the municipal center, which was the number 2 site, and the Kingsdale Center, which was the number 1 site. And so as a committee, we decided that we should proceed forward so we directed Williams and OHM to proceed forward with site plans and some massing and building concepts for both of those sites. And so obviously we spent a lot of time in the last 2 months looking at those massing diagrams and looking at those. So I don't need to repeat those, but that's what the next section really talks about. Why don't you scroll down a little bit more? Just do a summary of what the building consists of, you know, in terms of the various floors, et cetera. And then the last paragraph on that page deals with what we just talked about, the estimating and the comparison of cost between the MSC site and the Kingsdale site. I need to adjust these numbers a little bit in here to reflect the revisions based on the escalation. So this is just a draft for your all's input. But generally speaking, there's $20 to $24 million difference between the 2 sites. The main difference is municipal building, or the MSC site, requires the reconstruction of all the current municipal building space as part of the building. Whereas at the Kingsdale site, that does not need to happen. There is extra office space being proposed at Kingsdale, but that's funded separately, has its own revenue stream, and can act as a standalone piece. And so we decided that that would not be part of the comparison of the 2 sites. So to get apples and apples, that's what we have. And that's the chart that Nan showed us, was the apples to apples comparison. So I'll go down to the recommendations section and basically recommending that the Kingsdale site be the preferred option. We have not voted on this yet as a subcommittee, but I put that out there based on all the discussions that we've had so far. And this is certainly out there for your discussion and input, but main reasons: more centrally located, it's more accessible. The MSC site will require some more significant roadway improvements, i.e. a roundabout at Tremont and Kenny. I think there was a good interest from the committee regarding the fact that the Kingsdale site provides some synergy, meaning there's adjacent retail, office, dining, and residential uses, which we think will complement the community center and vice versa. And the MSC site would be more of a traditional standalone kind of facility. Obviously, significant cost difference for the Kingsdale site. And lastly, in the current statistically valid survey, which I think is going to be shared tonight, the MSC site received 24% positive support, whereas Kingsdale received about 75% positive support. So that is the basis for our recommendation back to the task force, which hopefully they would adopt and go back to City Council with a recommendation for the Kingsdale site. So I throw that out there. I'm just one voice on this committee, so I guess I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts.
Well, Greg, I thought you did a great job on it. You really hit all the high points and everything. You saw the only thing I did was tweak, and mainly tweaking things that, you know, like our residents might not understand what those terms were. That's probably the biggest thing I did. You know, like at SpaceX and then the, you know, MSC. A lot of people may not even know what the MSC is.
Yeah, I get that. They go, what's that? Right.
Yeah. So that's all my comments were related to tweaking that for maybe making understood all our residents understand it.
And just one thing, my thought here is, yeah, whatever comments you have right now, that's great. And then you can all follow up with more written edited comments and send me an email with those too. So let's hear what you all would say.
I would say also, if it goes to MSC, what's not, and you have to move the police department, that's even additional cost. So even that 80 million is probably low with those costs, as well as road improvements and everything else.
And not to say the logistics of continuing to function while it's being built too would be really big deal.
Although I will say we figured out how to function a little bit as a distributed organization over the last few months, but
I bet
yeah.
you did, yeah. But
so it's going to be work at home for the next 4 years or whatever.
it's even if the costs were the same, the Kingsdale site is still the best location by leaps and bounds.
Other,
No doubt on that, Bill, because 75% I think of the community, you know, wants it there. They want their kids to get there, and you know, Kenny Road's just a tough road all together. But I think this is so great from what Nan's done, and I think, gosh, it's so inviting and invigorating to think of our community having a facility like that. And even if Greg's fire pits have to be space heaters with, you know, a lot of cords out there, Greg, we'll get there. But I mean, can you imagine having this in UA? It's phenomenal. And Nan, I think, you know, bringing it all together with the way you did, I loved it. It made, I agree with Greg too, that I can never see a space and figure out how in the world you will ever fit it on there. And now it makes sense. So, but I think tonight, this whole process of starting out with where we began, explaining it, the phases, the community input, which we always said was the most important thing we were doing here, and how we tied everything we did to that, it will be, I mean, I feel very positive about all of this for this evening. It's exciting.
Linda, I totally agree with you. We've made so much progress.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but we will hear from neighbors right near Kingsdale that, you know, they've got, you know, huge concerns, and they voiced it, and that's okay. I mean, it's a democracy.
And rightly so, but you know, with everything, Margie, you've been involved in so many campaigns. If you can't answer their questions, then you have a problem. So, you know, we understand that, and that's part of what the community is, and going forward, you're addressing those things and taking people along with you, but that's growth, and
Yep.
and it is hard, but we've
And
addressed it.
Yeah, relative to that neighborhood to the east, I think their biggest concern relates to traffic and how it impacts their neighborhood.
Right.
With
And
the
I
high
know-
school.
With the high school. And I know that the city has had, or the city engineers had one meeting with that neighborhood group. They're going to have another one here in a week or two. And I think from what I hear, because my daughter lives over there, so she's part of this whole discussion. She supports the community center, obviously, but she's not.
You know what, I think
But
what
but I think it's been a good productive discussion. I think
Me
there's
too.
solutions out there that can, help people or feel better and understand that things can be solved. So.
Yeah.
And whether it's community center or not, I think we assume that Frank Cass or whoever is going to develop that site at some point.
and we
So,
have control.
so we're not getting away from it. So,
Yeah, and our task force is just the community center part. This
Right.
Right.
the whole development that needs to be addressed relative to traffic, and I think that's being done right now. So I don't know if you want to ask that, Steve, but
Yeah, so Jackie Thiel, who's our city engineer and public service director, she did a really effective community meeting 3 weeks ago now. She's going to be going back to the community, I think next week. I'll get, I think, gosh, now that means I have 4 evenings next week. I think she's going back like Thursday next week to the community. And I think she's going to have some pretty creative solutions to the problems. I will give credit to our esteemed subcommittee chair, who helps to have a subcommittee chair who used to do a thing or two with civil engineering to come up with a couple creative ideas in terms of how to solve traffic. So, as we saw this coming, Greg stepped a little bit outside of his official duties here and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing this or doing that?" And so that was a big help. So I think, look, one of the things about development projects is that one of the good unintended consequences is they surface stuff that's kind of latent in the community. And this has done that in terms of some of the traffic concerns over in Wakefield Forest is the name of the neighborhood. So we're making progress on that. I will say also, to overlay some of the finance committee stuff into this, the ability to leverage revenues generated from that ancillary development that Frank is doing, Frank Cass with Continental, is fundamental to making the numbers work for being able to do this with without a tax increase. And our models that say we can pull that off, I think, are really dependent on that.
Yeah, and I appreciate those comments, Steve and others. I just, for those who hadn't heard about that, I just want to make sure, because it could come up again, and those of us that may be on the call, I just wanted people to be aware of that. So anyway, but this is all good stuff. We really have made so much progress as a team, everybody together, so.
I just want to comment, Greg, I will review those numbers and probably give you some modifications to the square footages so that they total and
yeah, that'd be good.
align with what we have in the program.
Yeah, read through what I did, make sure I didn't
Yeah.
mess something up, but
Yeah,
I
okay.
think they're right, but they may be a little off. So.
They're a little bit off, so I just want to give you the right numbers.
Okay. Any other comments from folks on the?
Is there an update on where Continental is with the development?
So City Council approved 6-0 the economic development agreement, or authorized me to enter into an economic development agreement with them that lays out the terms of the TIF arrangement and all that. Next step is that the schools, we've asked the schools to take a vote on Tuesday next week to approve a compensation agreement between us and the schools. So we're having regular discussions with the school's administration to make sure that everybody understands all the agreements and they feel like they have all the information they need to make an informed decision as they go into their process. You know, assuming everything goes through, Frank's plan is to close on the property first week or so of January, and then he'll go through the process with BZAT to start work on the first two buildings. I don't have a schedule for when the blue building comes down, and similarly, I don't have a schedule for when bricks are available. And yes, Wendy, I know that there's an interest in looking to see if we can use some kind of a fundraiser on that. And then, you know, I think they will progress with their first two buildings through those various processes and maybe even start doing some site work prior to May. And then we'll figure, once, assuming council puts something on the ballot in May, and we'll really get into detailed planning on the full site plan once we know whether there's going to be a community center or not.
When's his apartment supposed to be done? Does he say?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
When do you think the apartment building will be complete? Does he have a schedule?
I'm sure he does. My assumption is he's probably looking at an 18-month construction, something like that.
Okay.
I have a question related, but it has some bearing on the brick question. When will he take the building down?
As I don't know.
Okay.
I would assume it will be sometime this spring.
I'm not a big fan of the bricks, so that doesn't matter, but I am a big fan of it taking that thing down. That's been an eyesore for at least 5 years since it's been occupied. I'd go back further when it was.
Any other comments on the recommendation that we want to make to the task force as a whole? So I guess I'm not sure procedurally how we need to move forward. Number one, I guess as far as the final document, you know, I'm fine, you know, if you want to take till the end of the week, anybody on the subcommittee or anybody else want to give me any edits, we can do that so I can finalize it over the weekend. I don't know, procedurally, we need to vote on a recommendation as a subcommittee. I'm not sure, you know, but I think
Probably would be a good idea to do it via email so that we can say that.
I don't think we can.
Yeah, just get it by email. And I guess the intent is to present it on December the 9th, right?
To present it to the task force. So what I would do is make a motion that we recommend to the task force as a whole, that we're recommending, you know, the Kingsdale site, given the reasons that were put forth in this document, and that you all, as part of this thing, you allow me to make any edits to this thing subject to all of your edits. I'm not going to change anything other than what you give to me, which I will circulate. But in general, a recommendation to the task force that we proceed with the Kingsdale site based on all the things that are in this document. So I don't know if that's that wouldn't pass council's legalese, but I think for our committee, I think that's good enough to.
Well, yeah, and I think having something that reflects clear consensus by the subcommittee on the recommendations, I think is really important. And Steve, you may have shared that, you know, we're pulling this, all of the pieces, the subcommittee work together. And we'll be drafting a recommendation to take to the full task force on the 9th. it won't be, it won't be long and detailed, because then we'll present that to, a version of that to the council on the 16th of December. I mean, some of us have been in the, on these meetings. And then at the January city council meeting, we'll present the full report for them to vote finally, right? To take that vote finally to approve it. So
Accurate.
Greg, the work you've done, I mean, the summary that you've provided is really, really helpful.
So I'll put that, I don't know if I made it in a form of a motion, but I will make it in a form of a motion. The motion that I will make is the facility subcommittee is recommending to the task force as a whole that the Kingsdale site be pursued based upon the process and analysis that we have been through and the things that are incorporated in this document. So that's the motion.
So moved.
So we got a second from Bill. Any comments, any more discussion from anybody? So all in favor, you can. I don't know where.
They back out, everybody.
Yeah, we lost. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Anybody opposed? Nope. Okay. And so, and then hopefully you all are comfortable with me modifying this subject to Bill's comments, which I have, or any other comments that anybody wants to send my way between now and Friday. And then I'll do that over the weekend and then circulate a final document on Monday. But if you, I think we can, and then we'll have a document that we can give to the task force as a whole. So, okay.
I think that's great. I think you did a great job of summing up what we've done and how we all feel. And I think any little tweaks between now and then are going to be very minor. And if there is something that comes up, we can discuss if we need to. But I think you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And I agree with that. You covered all of the whole process in a pretty concise manner.
Well, Jeff helped me too, so I can't take too much credit here. So.
And Jeff, who's probably listening in, thank you too.
You made some good suggestions. So, okay. So we will get this finalized and we'll have this ready to present as part of the packet, I think, for the task force meeting on the 9th. I think there's one more order of business. Since this is our last subcommittee meeting, I need to make a motion that you all give me the right to approve the minutes for this meeting, absent having another meeting doing that. I don't know if that's the official way of doing it, but I make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All
right.
What about public comment?
That's the last thing. So are there folks that want to make a public comment or question? Whether you signed up or didn't, we're good with,
So if you do want to make a public comment, use the raise your hand function, and Jeff will promote you, and we'll give folks a couple seconds to figure that out if they want to make a public comment or not. And while we're waiting on that, let me just take a moment, and I want to offer my both kind of personal and professional thanks to this group. This process has been long. I think it's been longer than when any of you signed up, maybe longer than you expected. And I think a lot of that's to do with COVID, but you guys stuck with it. And this process, I think, has been a successful process, not because of the outcome, but because of the thoroughness of the research and the thoroughness of the advice that you're able to give to council. And that has been solely because of the depth of involvement and the skill set that each of you brought to this. And it's been incredibly rewarding for me as the city manager to kind of go through this process with you all and know that whatever steps are taken going forward, we're going to have had the work of you all to rely on to make whatever comes out of this 1,000% better. So I just want to offer my personal thanks to each and every one of you for the work that you've put into this. So thank you.
Well, thanks for all your help. I think we've all worked together as a good team between the city staff and the subcommittee. So, and Nan and all the consultants. So it's been a good cooperative effort. So
It's
great
been a
team-
very good
great team effort.
process. Yeah, it's been a great process. We've shared this as an example for some other communities that we're working on just because of how successful I think it's going. So, you know, just the ownership by the task force and the amount of work that you all have done is remarkable. So thank you.
And please know, I promise, Nick and I did not do a bait and switch to say, oh, we'll only be doing this for 6 to 8 months. You know what I mean? So I promise you that was not the intent. And we are so grateful that you have persevered along with us. So, yeah.
All right, I don't see anybody requesting to make comments. So
comments. Okay. Well, if you do, Jeff, maybe you can repeat the email if people want to make email suggestions or comments or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. They can send them to parks@uaoh.net.
Okay.
And they can also visit the studies website at uacommunitycenter.com for all the updates.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we would encourage any comments you have to forward them to us. It's all helpful. With that, oh, Wendy, go ahead.
Well, before we adjourn, I'm just curious about the community meeting tonight. And you want us all on? And what do we expect out of that?
you want to take that, Marjorie, or you want me to?
I'll start it out and you can kind of add to it. So this will be our final community meeting. We'll have others related to this, but before we take this to city council, and it's an update. I mean, we won't focus in a lot on phase 1. The focus will be on phase 2 and quite frankly, the facilities and financial subcommittees reporting out. And we'll, as part of that, we will provide, a high level overview of the statistically valid survey, just a slide or two. So that's generally what we'll have. And it would be great if all of you can participate, as many subcommittee members, particularly the subcommittee task force members would be great. Anything I missed, Steve?
No, I think you got it. I mean, really, the intent is to give an update to the community, and then at the end, we'll do a little bit of polling, and the purpose of the polling really will be to find out what are the areas that people are most interested in getting more information. I think that's kind of the outcome that we're looking for out of tonight, because I think we're to the point now where we've taken a lot of public input, and it's kind of getting back to the public what we put out there and checking in on what else we need to get more information out about.
Yeah, how many folks, and Emma may know this, responded online to the survey?
Do you know that number off the top of your head?
It was 1,609.
So that's terrific. I mean,
Yeah.
it's qualitative. However, it aligns close enough with what the statistically valid survey, I think, right, Steve, that was the
Yeah. And I'm always careful with internet surveys that we got 1,609 responses. I won't say that we had 1,609 individual people respond, but we got 1,609 responses, which shows a great level of interest in the project.
Yeah.
How many were in the statistically relevant?
Emma, was it?
300.
Okay.
And that's, and that's what, plus or minus 3%? Or 4?
5.65%. So for you repeated the survey multiple times, 95 times out of 100, you would have a very similar answer within about 5 percentage points.
Right.
And my family were one of the ones that got the original one the first time, and we didn't this time. So they've dispersed it some more. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and we actually use different firms, which, there's pros and cons to that, but I think it kind of the fact that we're still seeing numbers track in the same general area, I think it helps with the confirmation that the numbers are probably pretty solid.
Well, and no matter which firm it is, to your point, Steve, they all use generally the same methodology in finding a random sampling. So, so I think that that the results really are really valuable to compare. So, does that help you, Wendy? Does that give you some?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Steve, can we on the task force get a copy? I guess it's 2 surveys, one the statistical one, the other one is the general one. Can we get copies of that?
Yeah, we'll get those out to you, and we're going to put them both up on the website. It'll probably be morning before we get those up, but we'll go ahead and get emails out to the full task force.
I'll email them to everyone tonight.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to reading it. And looking forward to I assume we sign in just like everybody else on the meeting tonight. We're not given any special connections because it's a community meeting.
Yeah, that's correct. We didn't really set everyone up as a panelist.
Which makes sense. We're not doing the presentation. So that's double checking. I will definitely be watching.
Good. And Jeff, I'll be on as a panelist since I'm opening up.
Yeah.
Yep.
But thank you. Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
anybody else? Any other comments? Otherwise, have some dinner and come back for the community meeting. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All right. Thank you.